Welcome to Building Stories, the podcast where we tell honest and sometimes funny stories about construction and digital transformation. I'm very excited to have Gary Cowan with us today. He's the head of digital construction for a Northern Irish building services design and build contractor called Kane Group. He has 20 years experience in construction and heads the largest digital construction team in Northern Ireland. He's a DFMA specialist and prefab into XR technologies like VR and AR and gamification, and uses reality capture and point cloud technology and precision setting out services. So happy to have you, Gary. Really happy.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we've also got our Deep Space CEO, Ricky Sefter, with us today. Thanks for jumping in, Ricky.
I'm excited to do the first one of these. So thanks for having me on.
Nice.
Good to meet you, Gary.
Thanks very much, man. Mate.
All right, Gary. So let's talk about you for a minute, mate. Any hints that you would be involved in this industry when you were growing up?
I did actually, growing up, I was the youngest of three boys. I have two older brothers, so they're quite a bit older than me. My oldest brother, Alan, he's 16 years older than I am. He's a woodworker. He's a joiner by trade. So, I grew up in a house where the attitude was always fix it yourself. It wasn't, it was a house full of men and everyone sort of fighting to get at the tools, really. So from an early age, I was really actively involved in playing with tools, working with tools, and had that sort of inkling, I think, going forward. But I always wanted to do engineering. I always had dreams of going to university and studying to be an engineer. So that's kind of always was where again.
Yeah. So how did that play out then? So you're out playing with the tools in the backyard, but then at some point you go to uni, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, the nickname for me growing up, I was the professor. They always sort of said that there was illusions of grandeur and I was going to be the one that would make it to university. And lo and behold, I did. But, growing up, I was
you're the chosen one, mate.
I was the chosen one. My two brothers sort of drummed it into me from a young age that I was going to be the one. So I ended up doing it. I had a great interest in engineering as a child. Any sort of present that I would have been bought, kind of took it apart. I went out to my dad's shed and got a screw set out and took the screwdriver out and had an inquisitive mind as to how the inside of this thing worked. As much as it was great and what it did, I had more interest in the innards of it than what it did. So many times I got scolded for stripping a very expensive present to its bare pieces and looking at it in its entirety and then putting it all back together and making sure that it worked. So I had more pleasure out of that than playing with some of the toys. But I suppose that followed me up through school, and I studied sort of design in school and really loved technology and design in school and doing drawings and renders and things like that. Really enjoyed that. And then that sort of led into university, and we were kind of the last year to ever learn how to do the drawings traditionally on the sliding board that we would have had. So the first year we were taught sort of to draw on paper with French curves and set squares and doing it all that way. And then the second year at the university, we'd come back in and the lecturer had all the set stuff sitting at the table, and he said, right, everyone, last year you learned to draw all the skills of drawing manually, and this year, and he held up a computer mouse. He says, you're going to learn to do this. And everyone was sort of like, right, okay. And then that was the first year we sort of learned CAD. So I was late 90s, even then it was quite established, been going probably 15 years at that stage, but we learned then how to do everything on the computer. And even when I graduated from university in 2006, I went straight into the building trade here. It was very much 2D CAD, it was all 2D line, polylines and estimations. And if you had to work out a section for building services, you were doing it from your imagination. You were almost drawing it in 2D and then to happen to actually render the section yourself. So it was very time consuming, and quite often you got it wrong. You maybe even got your own design interpretation wrong on a section. So it was kind of a baptism of fire for me. At that stage, I was very much on site at the same time as doing drawings and offices, and kind of worked my way up very slowly. A lot of site-based experience there in my early career. Sort of decided to go to the sites for a while because I had no real experience in physically putting pipes and ducts together. So
that's good, isn't it? Like, because you're linking the design, the drawings to what's happening on site. Like, that builds such a depth of kind of experience.
I suppose it was the course of my experience, my career as well. It kind of fell in that way. It's few of the roles required a wee bit more hands-on site, and I worked for some great older guys that took me kind of under the wing and took me on sites and showed me stuff as well, which is great. At the time, you kind of really had to understand the physical part of building a building before you could ever try and think of it digitally. The most successful people that come into the game that I'm in now of digital construction are people who have, war wounds, battle scars from site, that bring to site and understood why duct doesn't hang a certain way and the rules of sloped pipework for drainage. You have to have kind of fought those wars and won them on the real battlefields before you try and look at it digitally. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I come from.
So, mate, obviously listening to you and, you started your career in 2006. We're now heading into 2025, nearly 20 years in the industry.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest change that you've noticed? Like, what's that one thing that you go, has changed the way it works from the time you enter the university to what you see now?
I mean, when I first came out, it was very much the old school way of building. It was very much paper drawings pinned to the wall, an old school way of managing paper trails and people running around with lever arch folders and having to do O&M manuals the old-fashioned way, sitting there at 200 A-knot drawings and folding them and folding them. So that was a baptism of fire when you were a kid.
Sure.
When I was sort of coming through, you were a master of O&Ms. You could have you could have round off any particular fan coil unit in a particular building for no reason whatsoever, other than you had to literally inspect every document and make sure it was stable correctly and put into the folder. So that is the biggest change in the digital way it's done now. We handle masses amount of data and it's all sort of provided in a digital format to our clients, sort of embedded in the digital model, but then also translated across into Kobe sheets for standardization with FM guys. So there's masses amount of data handling that's happening in BIM now. Even in the 20 years from I started using Revit, I started using Revit sort of 2006, 2007. So it's been 20 sort of years using Revit. And when I first started using Revit, it was very much just a coordination tool for us on the building services. Very often we didn't even have an architect's model. Very often when I first started working for Kane's in 2012, we actually drew the building and the structural model ourselves based off of the 2D drawings provided by the other guys in the design team. And then we sort of found all the clashes and stuff ourselves. So we were really, really early to the table with them ourselves at Kane's. I was really happy to land in with the work with Kane's, and you sort of took it straight away as soon as they seen that what was possible with this technology, that they grabbed with two hands. They had already been very good with AutoCAD and up to that point, but sort of the explosion of digital construction in the early 2010s is where it really sort of came to bear.
What do you think drove that, Gary? Like, was it the clients asking for things, or was it you guys just realizing financially this is going to be better for us, and these are the reasons, and we're going to do it anyway?
It's a bit of a mixture of both. I think there was a very much benefit seen of it. A lot of it's luck, I suppose. They won a certain contract with the client Boyks, and that was a stipulation on that contract. They had the interface with 3D, so they had to at least toe it into that world at that stage. And it was very much, when I was brought in at that stage, I was given a PC and I was given Revit on a thumb drive, and it was like, right, we have to provide a BIM model to these people. Away you go. And that was how BIM was born in Kane's all those years ago. So, the change has been paramount and unprecedented for us. I mean, it's just a different way of life. And I kind of told the directors at the time, it might be a chatback exercise now in 2011, whatever it was, but rest assured, in 10, 15 years' time, the digital model probably be one of the most important things we build. We build a building twice. We build it digitally first, and then we build it for real in the real life once we've sort of done the dress rehearsal in a digital model.
But maybe, what are the big advantages for someone who's not close to the action, and a lot of people listening in? Has the total cost of ownership reduced by having a lot of this digital construction now in place? Because a lot of people would say, okay, we've got a lot of this data, awesome, that's great. However, the finished product is more or less the same. Like, it costs the same. Some would argue it even takes longer. So what are the actual benefits from a society perspective too?
It's so much quicker doing, designing using BIM is so much quicker than the traditional way of doing it. It's so much cheaper to stand and look at a problem in a virtual model than on an actual building site when there's time constraints and there's money being spent, when it really does cause a problem. So the old adage and the old way of first in, first up, the way it used to be whenever I first started, the plumber was normally in first and he got his run, and then the guy came in and they argued for a while and got a shirt pulling and stuff getting cut, and then the spark finally would have showed up at the last minute and just threw all his trays wherever he wanted with a flagrant sort of finger gesture at the rest of them. So the new way of doing it is much more structured and balanced, and it's almost like symphony on site. It's almost like an orchestra of everyone comes in at a certain time, has their role to play. It comes in at a pre-manufactured state, and it's sort of preset, measured out. It's put into place, tweaked, and everyone sort of works at a very tight sequence of work and sequence of play. And what we've seen on the whole is that the time scales of projects can be squeezed much more tightly now, which wins us a lot more work with different clients and in fact much more aggressive schedules, and the cost savings of that, obviously for the client first off, and for ourselves, we can do it a lot faster, we can try and do it a lot better and maintain quality at the same time. So the DFMA route, the prefabrication route, sort of has been at the forefront of that. The last 15 years, we've kind of become specialists at providing, real robust prefabricated solutions to all of our clients.
Yeah. So with the industry, some of those subbies were happy to come on the journey. Some came kicking and screaming. But what are some challenges you personally faced along that journey of kind of maturing this industry?
We're uniquely set up in that a lot of the labour that we use on the site would be subcontracted as well. So we are working with different groups of people all the time. So it's trying to, consistency is the key for us across all of our sites. So we could have 6, 8, 10 live sites running in sequence, and for us it's consistency. It's trying to make sure that the same drawing structure and file structure is consistent no matter what site you may walk onto. It's all exactly the same. So if you were on a certain site and you were looking for a drainage drawing, the sequence number starts with 52 and it's the same on every drawing. So it's familiarity and consistency. But the biggest sort of drawback from everyone was just the how quickly it came. But we were sort of lucky. It was a very young, dynamic team in Kane's. There wasn't too many of the older generation that had to take too much convincing. And the key is to try and not blind people's sense and try and make it as easy to use, layman's terms. So I do a lot of the training, a lot of the key technology decisions. Just try and make it really simple, and all the technologies that we use have to sort of mesh quite close together as well, and sort of talk to each other and work with each other, and thankfully they do.
So that we talk about, death by apps and death by point solutions, and you also mentioned consistency. How do you come up with an approach that is consistent? Because there's all these different bits and someone wants to do it one way and someone a different way. How do you do that?
A lot of it was trial and error, a lot like it. A lot of it was sort of tried a few different ways of looking at stuff and come up with a few different solutions. So originally our prefab guys used to work exclusively in AutoCAD, and they were very stubborn in that. They were quite happy to work solely in AutoCAD. They didn't feel that the Revit environment had enough accuracy with the bends and stuff. So sort of had that argument with them and said, look, I do believe we should be working on a federated model. We kind of spat out the plant room and give it to them in 3D. By the time they produced something in their 3D format, the room had perhaps changed or moved, or there was now a cable tray or drainage had been developed to it. And those two designs, once splintered, never fully came back together again. So we almost had to prove the point to them. I had to kind of lift my entire computer and walk around in the prefab department and plonk it right in the middle of the room and go, I'm going to prove the point here. I'm going to produce the next plant space directly in Revit using fabrication services, and we're going to produce all the drawings natively in Revit, and then we're going to send the drawings down on the shop floor, and we're not going to tell the people on the shop floor that the system in its entirety had changed. And it all went through, the guys on the shop floor just turned the stuff out as if it was no difference. And the beauty was all of the things that we were detailing were actually live in the ferry model. And if you had shifted one of the steelworks on one of the rigs, all of the drawings that were interlinked in the background all automatically updated, notified us that there was a revision change. So it revolutionised the whole drawing management part of it, because we not only do we manage documents for the building site on the client side, but we also handle all of the shop drawings that are internal to Kane's for producing all of the prefabricated content that we make and fabricating our own yard. So we could be putting 500 drawings a week out to the clients, but 500 internal drawings as well.
So you've been leading this charge with DFMA and prefab. What are you most proud of?
Just the journey of it all for me, really. It was such a hard thing to put together, so many different facets to it, so many different technologies. I had to meet so many different people in the industry to piece all the different pieces of technology together. So I had to really understand reality capture and GIS coordinates. So I had to go and almost become a surveyor and understand how to establish control on sites and do really, close control measurements and topographies, and how to use all the sort of laser satellite machines and point cloud scanning machines, how to take a point cloud capture and then do recap and do all that kind of stuff. So there's been so many different technologies I've got to play with over the last couple of years. It's been the sort of highlight for me. And the people behind it all, it's just amazing. You meet people from all different walks of life from all over the world now, talking to people for different technologies, and a lot of them are starting to listen to a lot of the things I'm suggesting and saying. So it's phenomenal, to be involved in the industry. It's great. I really enjoy it.
Awesome, mate. And with all the experience that you've gained over the last 20 years, if you were to talk to your younger self or anyone who's coming up in design and construction, what would be some of the advice you would love to pass on?
I actually have 5 kids myself. I have 5 of my own children. I'm encouraging to follow in my own footsteps. I think my oldest daughter, I think she is probably the one so far has shown the biggest interest in it. I would like to say, and what I sort of say to them all is, don't be afraid of failure. I know that when I was young, I was really trying to over exaggerate myself and over look at me, I'm amazing, and the thought of failure almost tripled me worrying of getting it wrong. And I sort of always say to anyone coming behind, any sort of the top of any mountain where you're successful is just a pile of the failure you had before you, and don't be afraid of it. It's a lesson. Take whatever lesson you can. Obviously, don't try and fail, but don't beat yourself up about it. Just lick your wounds, get back on your 2 feet, realize where you went wrong, and go again, and we go again. And tell everybody that you're not going to get it right every time. You're going to make mistakes. Even 20 years in, I still sort of drop clangers here and there and make mistakes and assumptions. So don't be too hard on yourself. It would be the biggest advice I would give to anybody coming through unemployed. It's an amazing industry to be involved in, and the technology's changing at such a rapid pace around us. It's exciting. All of the new technologies are coming in with the XR technology and AI and everything else is coming into the mix now. It's a fantastic time to be involved.
Yeah, mate, great tip about don't be alarmed about making mistakes. Can you recall some of the biggest ones that you made? Maybe not a whole list, but perhaps the biggest mistake you made. Put it on the record.
I could open a model here and show you probably 5 or 10 at the moment.
The one that perhaps
I remember one of the earliest jobs that we ever did using Revit in Kane's. We took on Lands Road. It was a residential complex, and there was a big car park. And I had modeled all of the drainage in HDPE and had actually had it tight enough to the underside of the slab, and then below that was a bit of ductwork, and below that was a lot of tray, and then obviously there was a restricted head height that couldn't be sort of dipped upon because it was an underground car park. So I drew all of the drainage routes very early on and sort of progressed on, and then one of the days I had to go to site, and I walked on the site and looked up. It was all in cast iron, and it was sitting probably a good 6 inches lower, but with all of the strap bends and the mechanical fittings weren't taken for. I had taken for a electrofusion welded butt weld to be basically an inch off the underside of the slab, but by the time you took it onto the mechanical clamp and all that, the whole run had come down about 6.5, 7 inches. So that made the whole layer of cake have to come down basically 6 inches, and
Yeah.
I sort of sloped over into the corner and turned white and realised what I had done, and then had to literally pull one of the drawings off the wall
Right.
and was flat, scribbling all over, had to reroute ductwork and reroute everything, and eventually got it to work. Yeah, but that was a lesson in that day. Find out what the system you should be working on before you even draw the pipe. Go and knock somebody's door and say, "Excuse me, am I meant to be drawing an HDP here, or am I drawing in cast iron?" Because it changed the HDP once you left the car park. So we were right in the upper levels, but unfortunately nobody turned on that we were using the wrong systems in the basement. So yeah, simple things from a 2-second conversation cost me that got a couple of weeks work and probably an inch of my hairline at the time. So.
Mate, as long as you never made the same mistake again, that's fine.
Well, I've never done that particular one, but I mean, my God, I've done many more, let me tell you. But yeah, don't be scared of them. Just learn your lesson, and do it again. Is the point, yeah.
Absolutely. You also mentioned that as you were coming up, through the ranks and kind of really learning what happens on site versus behind a desk, and you had a lot of good mentors. What were some of the most memorable moments, I suppose, or the advice that you got from those guys, and what are you doing about passing on the knowledge set that you are capturing to the next generation? Because that's quite critical.
Good question. I suppose early on, I was fortunate enough to work with a couple of older gentlemen. They were really great with me, Bill and Stephen. And they sort of kept me right. As such, when I first came out, I was very, very green, very well behind the years, and sitting in site meetings with men in their 50s, and there's me at 23 or 24, whatever it was, and they were kind of just looking at me like, who got the child in? You might be here. Probably looking for my lunchbox, you know what I mean? I was that young looking. But sort of, them guys taught me how to hold my own in meetings. I was sort of trying to fight my corner for the mechanical guys, and back then it was in that era of coordination clashes were a meeting. Back then everyone sat around a table and shouted at each other why my pipe has to be there, my duct has to be there. People don't even understand the modern way of doing building, how it used to be. The fights it used to have, and I remember a funny story, one of the earliest, sitting in one of the meetings in a mobile up out in the field somewhere in Ireland, and these two guys were shouting at each other about, you were meant to be there, and you were meant to be there. And your boy stands up and goes, enough of you, says, "Right, that's you, mate." And the two of them stood up and walked outside the thing in the field, and the two of them stood and had a full-scale boxing match until one of them fell. And then they got up and shook hands and come back in, and that was it, sort of. And I'm sort of sitting there at 23 or 24, looking at myself going, am I up next here? Like, I don't think I open my mouth for the rest of the meeting. I'm just making people tea on. So I was like, I said to the guys, I was like, surely every meeting's not like that. They're like, no, it's just down this direction. So, like, funny things like that happened over the years, but my goodness.
Does that only happen in Ireland though, or do you reckon that happens
Perhaps
everywhere?
Maybe one in Ireland, yes. That hadn't happened in Ireland yet. They'll put it that way, yeah. So yeah, maybe it was just at home here or there.
I would exchange plenty of slabs of beers for little things.
I've seen guys fighting on sites and all. One of the days, one of our guys was working. He was a plumber, and he was sent up to fix a run of drainage pipe had to be pumped and slightly amended, and he was through the soil pipe, and what he didn't realise was about 7 floors up, a guy that was starting painting the wall and realised he wanted to go to the toilet, but he couldn't be bothered running all the way down, so he pulled the top of the pipe off and relieved himself down the pipe, but he didn't realise that our boy was about 6 floors below, and he cut through the pipe and then got a face full of your man's urine, and he knew that he was the only guy up there because it was security cleared off and he was shouting and saying it. He knew who it was. So he ran up the 6 flights of stairs, and then I got the radio call. There was 2 guys fighting up the stairs, and I had to run up. The 2 boys were knocking 6 bells at each other, and then I had to do a whole big incident. The Ridor, we had to do it, report the dangerous diseases, what's called Ridor, because he got urine in his mouth and all. So I had to do a big Ridor report and all. It was a complete nightmare. And I was like, I was about 26, 27 at that stage. I was a site manager. And it was like the Wild West at the time, but it was great. It was a great experience. It really was at the time. Looking back on it now, 10 will probably went home and proud about it, but looking back, it was brilliant. It sort of made me in it, was all.
But after listening to that story, I don't know how many kids, and especially your daughter, would be too interested in getting into construction industry.
Well,
so I guess let's kind of flip the switch here and talk about the future. What are you next excited about? You talked about AI. You talked about all these different technology that are in play. Is there one particular thing that really kind of draws you and you go, this is going to be a game changer for the next decade? How you think?
Yeah, I think obviously I've watched XR technology go from leaps and bounds. VR was a thing that first came on the scene around about 2016, 2017. We were straight onto it. We were straight onto the VR. And I've watched that go from requiring literally a £5,000 PC and a tablet headset to run, one room of a building, to now the Quest 3 being able to render an entire building on the fly on, local rendering engine. So for me, the future, I think, is going to be mixed reality on sites. I think we've seen devices like HoloLens appearing in the XR10 control, using like a holographic heads-up display, which was good. I tried it, but it was very limited in its brightness and the contrast and stuff. I truly believe that mixed reality devices will become the normal on sites, and having the ability to have users with a headset on sort of do inside tracking, looking at the site for dangers, warning the user that there's approaching machinery, warning them that there's a fall in front of them. Because that headset, if you've used the Quest, it's always scanning your environment. They can see surfaces, so they can warn of dangers. That's how we get over that safety hump of having a fully enclosed visual covering device on someone's eyes on a building site. How could you ever sign that off for the Rams guy? But if that thing has cameras and it's tracking 360 degrees, it can see more than the human eyes can see. So we should be able to get over that technological and health and safety hurdle. And then I do see all the operatives walking around with mixed reality devices on when they're working. They can have sort of live demonstrations. People can be ringing in, and you can be putting Teams calls on the wall and streaming video of what they're looking at and saying, I have a panel here, where am I supposed to stick this wire in? And the person that's literally could be on the other side of the earth saying, well, take a snapshot of that, and they can doodle on the snapshot that they take, and then they upload that doodle to the person's field of view, and it sticks to what they're looking at. So even if they move, the doodle stay in perspective of, the technologies are just boundless for me. Being able to live stream sort of data back to design teams, starting looking at problems, it always puts the designers live on site. The technologies are going to be boundless. So this is amazing. Yeah. We're sort of looking at all that kind of, and it's very staged and set. But imagine being able to slip a headset on, and someone starting on site has a headset on, and the video capture that they're capturing is creating the 3D Gaussian flat background that you have in yours. So you can almost be starting on the site live, looking at the actual problem in fully rendered 3D Gaussian flat, going, oh yeah, see how you took the pipes there, it's okay, and then slip your headset off and jump into your Revit section and draw it because you've just student looked at it remotely. Do you know what I mean? For me, it's going to be the future in the next 5 years. Real-time video internet, you know what I mean?
I love it. I remember watching Jurassic Park as a kid, and I thought some of the technology in there would never even come to life. But, you're 10, 15 years, like FaceTime and everything's quite, it's a common thing. And I think what you're talking about is
another big thing. Up on top of the elder desk and the XR team, and said to them, like, when I'm starting in this virtual model, I want to have a digital assistant start beside me. I want to have a chance from, I'm not just asking questions. And even if I'm in the model on my own, I'll have this digital avatar stand with me and say, how much duct's on this floor? And it would tell me, there's 25 meters of this and there's 30 meters of that. You could almost be having a conversation with the AI while you're reviewing the model. We're very much still focused on tools on the hand to measure and tools. And I'm like, why are we still using hands to measure? Why can't I just ask the model a question? What's the height of the bottom of that duct? Why do I have to tell it the 2 points of reference? Why can't I just stick to it? So for me, that's the next big thing. The bandwidth problem isn't technology now, it's how quickly we can get the idea across to the computer is now the bandwidth problem. Do you know what I mean? The computers are light years ahead of us. It's now the bandwidth and the bottleneck is how quickly we can display or give our idea to the computer. If I can give a prompt to an AI that builds me a building, the outline of a building that's already the starting point, instead of me having to sit and think about it and draw it all out in trailer, I could just tell an AI, give it a bland square and tell me it wants to look like that, and it could almost spit me something back out that saved me a week of concept work.
100%. and the change management process that we all having to go through is where we're having to catch up. But you mentioned a lot of things there, and everything that you were talking about, for me, if I was to translate that through in my brain, it was like a lot of data points, more and more data points. Therefore, these models get better. The visualization piece that you were talking about, like everything's going back into this thing where, we're putting more data centers than ever. We're doing so many things behind the scenes to make sure that we're enabling our future. So where do you see this? How do you define actionable data for construction, and what does that really mean to you as far as what you see in your role and the future you transcribe?
It's just really important from the very early start of the project that the data part of it is decided on very early, and it sort of has all stakeholders involved. The very far, much too late down the line, the FM guys are considered, and by that stage, there's been decisions made long ago that completely upsets the entire flow of data in the apple cart. So early engagement with clients and more expertise for clients. I think they're not getting the best advice maybe from whoever they're talking to, but there's so much, I've seen so much work wasted on models because the receiving end didn't understand what the amount of work that had went into it. I'd had maybe 10 people crunching data into a model and provided millions of cells of data to find out that it's two guys in a van, don't even have a laptop, and they're working off tea-stained paper drawings that someone's printing for them. Do you know what I mean? It's disheartening for the whole team, and either way, other ways, some digital teams, and the amount of data they're asking for is actually expensive. Stupid amount of data they're asking for, millions upon millions of data. That's literally all the same data, and it's not even good data. It's not even data that's useful. It's no more than an asset tag that a single cell somewhere else could say, but they expect to see this single cell across every item, and we could have 150, 200,000 elements, and all of them have to tell you that it's a project, whereas there's a single project code in the project that tells you what the project code is. So it's how the data is applied and what's the useful data. It's as much, it's data in as data out. If you put garbage data in, you're just going to get garbage data out, and all of these power by systems and all these measuring systems are measuring thin air. They're measuring pixie dust. They're not measuring anything. They look good on the outside. It's rolling a turd and polish. It really is. It looks amazing on the outside, but once you actually get right into the nitty-gritty of it, you realise that no, it's not. We've done a bit of experimentation with 4D time sequencing and stuff. So we're sort of experimenting with that technology as well, and the 5D cost. We always kind of have, but we're kind of trying to integrate it more into the actual digital model instead of two simultaneous systems kind of running side by side and mirror each other. So it's definitely enough, like, yeah.
Nice.
Your business works across design and construction. So in the design side, you've got this data flow happening. How do you compress the timeframes of like the lag of some change happened over here, but we didn't become aware of it till a month later, and we didn't action it until a month after that? Like,
very difficult. Not gonna lie to you. Kind of Saturday document at the very start of the job is kind of light, and it just sets out sort of, I call it the model information delivery plan, MIDP. So all I do is break every single system down in our sequential numbers, and I want to know what pipework are we drawing in, what valves are we using, and there's placeholders placed in when we kind of think we know what we're using, and then that kind of stays in an amber until procurement guys go, yes, we've got the PTS in for that, and then that is kind of made to go green, and I know that we're definitely using out stuff, but we're trying to mitigate as much as we can in the model. So one thing that used to catch us out before was lights, for example. So I would spend maybe a week making all the different light families and embedding all the symbology into them and the references. And then the guys from design would have come down and said, oh, by the way, scrap all them lights. The guy didn't go for those lights. We got all these cheaper ones in instead. I'm going to save $2,000. And I was like, right, well, I just spent a week doing that. So you've just spent my wages at $2,000. So you didn't save anything at all, really, when you think about it. So knowing when to do certain tasks and work is also key. So we looked at the actual technology of how that worked, and it used to be that we used to always build in our symbology into the light. So we actually looked at it the other way around, and we made it that we're always bringing the light into our family that has the symbology. It's almost like a placeholder. So at the start of a project, we know that it's going to be a recessed light. We don't know what exactly light it is. So there's a generic placeholder of geometry inside, and then that can be placed in the project and all of the symbology is worked out. And then later on down the line, when we figure out what the light actually is, instead of having to recreate all that work, which took hours and hours again before, now you can just open that family in place and take the light geometry out and put the correct light family in and reload them all in place, and all of the symbology stays where they are and all of the geometry just updates in a click. So we've been exploring actual how to use Revit, how to use it more efficiently, how to use it better, and things like placeholders and things like that have worked really great for us. At the minute, a lot of nested families developed where we keep all of the sort of shadows and switches in the wall. Now I have all of the sort of back box inside and all of the conduits in the walls, so that if we move them around, it all moves as one unit, whereas before it used to all be done individually. So somebody would have moved the socket outside on the drawing, but forgot about all the internals, and then we ended up with loads of house problems and floating boxes in the walls, and we couldn't remember what was where. And so, it's through trial and error is the honest answer. Probably 10 years of trial and error for me of different systems and how they work, and going to FabCAD and making decisions on a technology basis.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part, right? Because you know now the risks, but ultimately that's through a long period of lessons learned. And you're kind of figuring out, oh, this was a problem, this is the lesson, this is how we'll do it. Again, like, I think the question is, how do you compress that? Because you don't want everybody having to go through every experience in order to build better, right? You need to kind of get this knowledge together somehow, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is hard to sort of compress it and put it in the any sort of readable format. I'm actually writing a book at the moment, so that like an introduction to Revit. Hopefully it's going to be available here for 26 coming out. Sort of like a Revit beginner's introduction. It's kind of how I would train anyone to use Revit. I always ask everyone, well, if they're doing their first training with me, even for building services that we do, I always ask them to use their own home as their example building to draw.
Yep.
And I send them home with an exercise to go home with a sheet of paper and do a very crude floor plan for me, and do a measurement if you can with a laser measure or whatever method you have, tape measure or whatever, and come back to me with all the dimensions and take a few pictures inside and out of the house. And then I spend a couple of days with them building a model of their actual house. And it's amazing how passionate they are, because they understand that it's their house. They get excited when they start to see it taking shape, and they're putting all of the carpets in and the colorings, but you see them understanding how to use Revit, and their sections, and they're placing levels, and they're putting the roofs in, and then at the very end they're like, oh, amazing, the house is there, and slip a VR headset onto them and we go into the wee house and we'll walk around in VR, and they're amazed. And then I say to them at the end, but now you can draw in Revit. You can basically, if I ask you to draw ducts and pipes, you haven't drawn any yet, but you'd be handy enough to draw a duct or a pipe, and away to go, and they're invested in it. They're excited about technology. It's familiar to them. It sort of gives them a real eye opener. So I'm actually writing a book at the moment, which is based on the same premise of the reader to draw their own house. It'll be an introduction to Revit 26. So
that's awesome.
I like that, man. That's your way of giving back. That's what.
I'm a STEM ambassador as well. I go around all the schools and I lecture here at universities and Northern Ireland. So there's Queen's University and there's University of Ulster. So I do regular lectures with them guys. So talking to students and giving them advice and experience back, and giving them our models and showing them what they should be expecting once they leave. You know what I mean? So it's a constant feedback cycle for me. Is how you have to close the circle. You have to keep going back to the younger youth. And I mean, the technology's moving so fast. It's if someone starts a degree now, 4-year degree, by the time they come out 4 years later, the whole goalposts have changed on them now. There's different software packages, there's different ways of doing things. So it's crazy.
Yeah, but they're also entering the industry as kind of digital natives, of a different flavor. They're coming in with AI in the toolkit and other things, and it's just how they
the
work,
old school art has lost. The old school art and craftsmanship is gone.
Yes.
Now a lot of them just don't understand. Like I almost tell everyone who comes into my team they actually have to go and spend 4 or 5 weeks on the sites and go
That's
and
great
pull a
advice.
few pipes, pull a few ducts, get your hands dirty, put a few bits of uni strut up, and you'll come back with a much better appreciation of what it is that I'm now asking you to draw in 3D. You know what I mean? So we do a lot of VR training as well, but nothing beats the practical side of it. So there's a nice balance in there. I think, you know, you can go to digital as well. And that's the problem I have with some outsourcing, you know, with trying outsourcing for a while, but the stuff they were showing me, it was just ridiculous. And just common sense. So I told you that it didn't even work, but, you know, they'd never even seen a building site in the UK or knew how it would work. So you couldn't expect anything else really when you thought about it. So, you know, practical experience is key as well. You know, and it is hard because you almost have to have a degree in computer literacy to drive Revit. Revit is a beast of a
it's a
machine.
beast. Yeah, yeah.
It's a beast of a I love it. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I tell everybody that. Some days I love it and there's other days I hate it, you know. And it's a necessary evil some days, but at the same time it's such a skill to master the software, never mind what it is you're actually trying to draw. It's not even like we're just trying to draw simple painting or something. It's a very complex thing to get a building correct and functioning and commissioned, and you know, the practical side of it, a lot of people don't see it. You know, consultants draw M&E models and have them out thinking that they're brilliant, and we get them and let them going. Well, that wouldn't work. It's not commissionable. You couldn't even, how do you kick that valve? Where's your valve? You know, I don't even understand. It's half the time why they get consultants to do complex 3D models. I always just say to them, look, give me a schematic and give me a rough
early
layout plan, what
contractor
you're
engagement,
and let us go. We take on board the other people's models, but we never take over a model. That's not the Kane way. We start a fresh model every time.
Yeah, based on your template.
Clean piece of paper. I take a clean piece of paper and write the title of the drawing on it, and then that's me started again. And we take all the links in and we start to draw from scratch. We don't ever keep the consultant's model in as a reference. Of course, I'm going to look at it and go, and kind of see what their intentions were there, but we'll with that again now, we'll go in and we'll do it the proper way now.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the work we've done at Deep Space is to try and rip that data out of Revit and expose it to a wider team, because, you know, just it's great to teach people Revit, but not everybody will be able to do that or should do that, right? So you're trying to figure out where are people's strengths actually sitting.
Well, we're seeing a lot more uptake in the digital model now. You know, years ago it was just the BIM guys and it was all 2D drawings on site, but now everybody on site has a tablet. Everyone's looking at the 3D model, everyone's ingesting the data. And the QSs are doing company takeoffs, and you know, there is the data part of it is becoming so much more important now. As we've seen at the outset, it was very much just coordination, just make sure with no packages, just make sure what we're building is right and it's going to go together. But today, it's so much more different. It's very much data driven. We have to make sure the right data's in the model, and we're using the right families, and all the right contact details are there. And, you know, cost is something that, as you guys have alluded to, you know, that's something that we're starting to look at more than carbon. It's going to be the next thing in that we're going to have to start tracing carbon and looking at carbon footprints and all of the different materials that we're using, even our logistics and everything. You know, we're
material tracking
buildings at the minute, so we'll have to track everything from how much waste we're generating and where the waste goes to. Does it go to the very top of Scotland to go on the boat, or does it go on the boat down to London? You know, it's very the model was very simple when I started. It was maybe only 4 legs, and it was simple enough, and it was a good machine to take on a good animal. And now it looks like a millipede that has a million legs at all different directions, and the market guys are using it for promo material, and the estimating guys are wanting early data, and the pre-con guys are looking at, our ops guys are taking the models apart, and we're looking at it through VR and AR, and we're point cloud capturing every site every day, and it's mad. It's a huge symphony. It's like an orchestra now, as I sort of say, and I'm kind of the conductor.
You are the conductor. That's cool, man. Yeah.
I'm the DJ, as I say. I'm keeping everybody dancing, and then
DJ sounds a bit cooler. Yeah.
That's right. I like that one, man.
All right, mate. We start to wrap up. We've got a few quick fire construction questions. You're out in the backyard. Are you going to pick up a hammer, a screwdriver, or grab the duct tape to do some work?
Screwdriver.
Yeah. Yep. And you're going to use concrete, steel, or timber when you want to make something?
I'd probably go for timber.
Yeah. Yep. They put a satellite up out of timber this week into space, made out of timber.
That's it.
Was
There's
it
no,
really?
No
there's no moisture up there,
class.
so they're going to
Alright.
There's
test
no
it out.
moisture.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no creatures, no insects can survive on it, so it would stay for.
That's cool. That's it. And your favorite bit of hardware tech, mate? You touched a lot of things and experiment. What's your favorite thing right now?
My favorite thing at the minute is my Quest 3. At the minute,
Oh, yeah.
I'm in love with the new Quest 3. It's just a phenomenal piece of kit. The mixed reality experiences on it are phenomenal at the minute. It really is good. So it would be that. I'm experimenting, sort of.
Yeah. You
point
driving that
clouds
from
and 3D
PC
and
or
stuff.
from tablets or phones, or what are you driving it from?
I do it all of them, so you can sort of hardwire tether to a PC and still do PC VR. So even with PC VR, the lenses, the pancake lenses are phenomenal, and the displays are amazing. Like I've been using VR headsets from the very first Oculus coming back in 2014, so I've been at them. I've tried nearly every headset in the market. And the clarity of that one is just for 500 quid. Like, it's ridiculous. But they've actually achieved with that headset.
Very cool. Nice. Well, awesome, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for sharing your story, Gary, and also staying up so late. We appreciate it, mate.
No worries. Thanks from really enjoyed it.
Yeah, mate. And how can people find you? They find you on LinkedIn, or how are we going to find this book when it comes out?
Very active on LinkedIn. I'm a member of the Revit user group. You can find me in there, sort of talking about models and talking about all cool things. And I'm on quite a lot of different podcasts on Spotify and YouTube. So if you just put my name in on YouTube or Spotify, there's probably a great handful of different podcasts that's on over the last couple of years, talking about all different aspects of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're our first guest who's based in the UK. So thank you so much for coming, mate. And all the best for the future.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Mate. See ya.
All the best.